This presentation was written and researched by James William Brann, MD. Artificial text-to-speech technology is being used for the narration. Many of us grow some of our own food because we value freshness, independence, and greater control over what reaches our table. But there is another important question we may not have considered. Do we know what went into the soil where our food was grown? In this presentation, we will examine ordinary garden soil, commercial compost, soil amendments, parasites, and biosolids. The purpose is not to make anyone afraid of gardening or commercial products. It is to help home food gardeners understand what they are buying, ask better questions, and make informed choices. We're going to answer 4 practical questions. First, what organisms can live in ordinary garden soil, and which ones could potentially affect human health? Second, are commercially produced composts and soil amendments sterile, or can they still contain organisms capable of causing illness? Third, what are biosolids? Why are they used in some fertilizers and soil amendments? And can they present a health concern? Finally, how can we choose safer products for the soil where we grow food for ourselves and our families? By the end of this presentation, you will have a simple shopping checklist and one exact question you can ask manufacturers and bulk soil suppliers. Garden soil is alive. It contains an enormous community of bacteria, fungi, insects, worms, and other organisms. Most of these are harmless or beneficial. They help decompose organic material, release nutrients, and build healthy soil. A small number of organisms, however, can infect people under the right conditions. Soil contaminated by human or animal feces may contain strongyloides, hookworm larvae, dog or cat roundworm eggs, toxoplasma, or raccoon roundworm eggs. Contaminated manure, untreated water, or unwashed produce may expose gardeners to Giardia, Cryptosporidium, and other intestinal parasites. Ticks and chiggers are external parasites commonly encountered in fields, tall grass, and brush. This does not mean that ordinary garden soil is dangerous. Infection usually requires a particular route of exposure, such as swallowing microscopic organisms from contaminated hands, allowing larvae to contact bare skin, drinking untreated water, or handling animal feces. Gloves, closed shoes, hand washing, clean irrigation water, and keeping animal waste out of the garden greatly reduce these risks. Commercially produced does not mean sterile. Potting mix, compost, manure products, mushroom compost, and worm castings all contain living microorganisms. However, properly manufactured commercial products are generally much safer than raw manure, unfinished compost, or material from an unknown source. Effective hot composting depends on several factors. The entire pile must reach an adequate temperature and remain hot for the required amount of time. The material must also be properly turned, aerated, cured, and stored. Products described only as aged manure or dehydrated manure may not have received the same control treatment as properly hot composted material. With a reputable commercial product, human parasites are not usually the leading concern. Dust, mold spores, bacteria, and fungi are more realistic exposures, especially when a dry bag is opened or poured. Open bags outdoors. Keep your face away from the opening and avoid breathing visible dust. Lightly dampening dusty material before mixing it can also reduce exposure. Now we come to a word that many home gardeners have never encountered: biosolids. Biosolids are treated solids produced during municipal wastewater treatment. Municipal wastewater includes material that leaves homes through toilets, sinks, showers, washing machines, and kitchens. Depending on the wastewater system, it may also include discharges from businesses and permitted industrial facilities. At the treatment plant, the liquids and solids are separated. The solids then undergo processes intended to reduce pathogens, control odors, and prepare the material for disposal or reuse. Material that meets applicable requirements may be classified as Class A or Class B biosolids. It can then be applied to agricultural land or used in certain fertilizers, composts, and soil conditioners. In plain language, biosolids are treated municipal sewage solids that are being reused for their fertilizer and soil building value. Why are biosolids used at all? The answer is that they contain nutrients and organic matter that can benefit soil. Biosolids may supply nitrogen and phosphorus, improve soil structure, increase water holding capacity, and return organic material to the land. Reusing these treated solids can also reduce the amount of waste sent to landfills or incinerators. For farmers, municipalities, and landscapers, biosolids may provide a less expensive source of fertilizer and soil amendment than some commercial alternatives. These benefits explain why biosolids are used. However, usefulness does not automatically mean that every product is appropriate for every purpose. The important questions are how thoroughly the material was treated, what contaminants may remain, how it will be applied, and whether food crops will be grown in that soil. Can biosolids make someone sick? The answer depends greatly on how thoroughly the material was treated and how a person is exposed to it. Class A biosolids undergo treatment designed to reduce pathogens to very low or undetectable levels. They can generally be distributed with fewer restrictions, although this does not mean the material is sterile or completely free of every possible contaminant. Class B biosolids receive treatment that reduces pathogens, but some organisms may remain. Their use requires restrictions involving public access, grazing, and the timing of crop harvesting. The greatest infection concerns involve direct contact with insufficiently treated material, breathing dust or aerosols, swallowing contaminated soil from unwashed hands, or exposure to runoff. Proper treatment and careful handling greatly reduce the immediate risk of infection, but they do not make all biosolids identical or completely risk-free. What about parasites specifically? Before adequate treatment, sewage may contain protozoan parasites, such as Giardia and Cryptosporidium. It may also contain viable helminth eggs. Helminths are parasitic worms, including various types of roundworms. Class A treatment is designed to reduce viable helminth eggs and other regulated pathogens to required levels. Properly controlled heat treatment is highly effective at reducing these biological hazards. Therefore, viable human parasites are not expected to be the leading concern in a properly processed, compliant bad Class A product. The remaining biological risks would be more likely to involve inadequate treatment, a failure in the manufacturing process, improper storage, or contamination occurring after treatment. Exposure to Class B biosolids is a different matter because treatment reduces, but does not necessarily eliminate, pathogens. The practical conclusion is that parasites are possible in untreated or inadequately treated sewage material, but they should be unlikely in a compliant Class A product. The harder question involves chemical contaminants. Treatment can reduce pathogens, but it does not necessarily remove every chemical that entered the wastewater system. Biosolids may contain small amounts of heavy metals, industrial chemicals, pharmaceutical residues, and other persistent compounds. One growing concern is PFAS, sometimes called forever chemicals, because they break down very slowly and can accumulate in soil, water, plants, animals, and people. Regulations place limits on certain pollutants, especially several heavy metals. However, not every possible chemical is routinely tested or regulated in the same way. The amount present varies greatly depending on the community, the industries connected to the wastewater system, the treatment process, and the source of the final product. This does not mean that every biosolid product is dangerously contaminated. It means that pathogen reduction and chemical purity are two different questions. A product may meet requirements for controlling infectious organisms while still containing chemicals that some gardeners prefer to avoid. Why might the product label fail to answer our questions? The words used on fertilizer and soil amendment packages can be confusing. For example, the term organic fertilizer does not necessarily mean that a product is approved for United States Department of Agriculture organic food production. In this setting, organic may simply describe material containing carbon. Terms that may indicate sewage-derived ingredients include biosolids, municipal biosolids, sewage sludge, wastewater residuals, and activated sewage sludge. However, these words may not always appear clearly on the front of the package. A product may be marketed simply as fertilizer, compost, topsoil, or soil conditioner. Those descriptions do not tell us the original feedstocks. The surest approach is to ask the manufacturer or bulk supplier one direct question. Does this product, or any ingredient in it, contain municipal biosolids, sewage sludge, or wastewater treatment residuals? If the supplier cannot provide a clear answer, we can choose a product with better identified ingredients. Here is a practical shopping checklist for buying compost, fertilizer, topsoil, or other soil amendments. First, choose products with clearly identified feedstocks. Look for labels that tell you what materials were used rather than relying only on general words such as natural, organic, or premium. Second, look for products that are OMRI listed or clearly approved for organic crop production. United States Department of Agriculture organic standards prohibit the use of sewage sludge. Third, when purchasing bulk compost or topsoil, ask the supplier for a complete list of feedstocks. Ask specifically whether the material contains municipal biosolids, sewage sludge, or wastewater treatment residuals. Fourth, record the brand, lot number, purchase date, and supplier. This information can be valuable if a product is later recalled or questions arise. When a label is unclear, contact the manufacturer before using the product in a food garden. Simple precautions can greatly reduce the risk of illness while gardening. Wear gloves when handling soil, compost, manure, or other soil amendments, and cover any cuts or broken skin before beginning. Closed shoes provide additional protection from organisms that may enter through bare feet. Avoid touching your face, eating, or drinking while working in the garden. When finished, remove your gloves and wash your hands thoroughly with soap and water. Open dusty bags outdoors. Keep your face away from the opening and avoid breathing visible dust. A well-fitting mask may help when pouring or mixing especially dusty material. Finally, wash fruits and vegetables under clean running water before eating them, even when they come from your own garden. These simple habits allow us to enjoy gardening while keeping unnecessary exposure as low as possible. Most commercial garden products can be handled safely when they come from reputable sources and are used as directed. Properly processed Class A biosolids are expected to present a low immediate risk of infection. However, they are not chemically pure, and concerns involving PFAS and other persistent contaminants deserve continued attention. Home gardeners who prefer to avoid biosolids have many effective alternatives, including plant-based compost, leaf mold, aged bark, coconut coir, cover crops, and clearly labeled fertilizers. The most important steps are simple. Read labels carefully, ask direct questions about the original feedstocks, choose products with clearly identified ingredients, and use ordinary protective habits while gardening. The goal is not fear. The goal is informed.